Hey friends, it's Ruben with Hi-Fi MIDI. Thanks for joining me for another video. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Spitfire's newest library, BBC Symphony Orchestra. Now, I should let you know that they sent this to me. I didn't actually purchase it, and I'm not being paid to review this product either. One of the weird things about being a product reviewer is that you have to be honest with the viewers. At the same time, you have to establish a good relationship with these companies. So I'm not going to say bad things about them, but I'm going to give my honest opinion about what I love about this product and the things that I don't like. If you're out there, please say hi. I want to say hi to you guys. I know it's been a while since I've live streamed. The last time I did, I was having some video stuttering issues. Well, anyway, I want to talk about this product. So I want to start with my download experience. Greetings from Greece. Hi, thanks for joining. So about my download experience, it was pretty straightforward. The only thing was that even with my high-speed internet connection, it took the entire day to download this library. It's 565 gigabytes compressed, and you need at least 1 terabyte of free storage space. I recommend using an SSD because these sounds take up a lot of RAM and they take a while to load. If you have an SSD, it's going to take a few seconds, but if you have a regular hard drive, it will take up to 30 seconds to load certain sounds. Spitfire offers an SSD for an extra $200. I think it's pretty worth it. So the installation was pretty straightforward. As soon as I was done downloading everything, the Spitfire library management app took care of everything. You just have to select the destination folders for the library, the sounds, and the software. So this library is different from all of Spitfire's other libraries in that it doesn't use Contact or the free Contact player to host the sounds. They've actually developed their own host software. Now, I've tried looking for the reason for this, and I didn't find it in the manual or on their website, but that's one thing to note. And another thing is that this app does not work in standalone mode. What I mean by that is that you have to use it within your DAW. And I was kind of conflicted about this because on the one hand, I understand that this type of plugin, orchestral plugins, you tend to use them more in a studio environment rather than live on stage. But I also like having the ability to just quickly open the app just for inspirational purposes. If I'm composing something and I want to just quickly access a sound, I don't have to open Logic or Cubase or Pro Tools or whatever just to hear. However, I'm not going to harp on them for that because Spectrasonics went through the same thing or did the same thing where it only worked within the DAW, but later on they created a standalone version. So hopefully Spitfire will do that with this. So let's talk about the plugin. Right away, I noticed that this is a huge window. This is a huge graphic user interface. The good thing is that you can resize it simply by dragging on the bottom right corner. You can make it smaller. And I'll quickly get to the sounds right now, but I just want to give you an overview of the setup here. On the top, you can see your CPU, disk usage, memory. As you can see, this first patch that I'm using, the Violins 1, is using a lot of memory. This is 794 megabytes. That's a ton. And how many voices? Then your MIDI channel, your tuning, panning, volume. And you have your settings window here. And then you have your preset menu. When you click on it, you can click on categories and it's going to filter them. So right now I have strings selected. If I don't have anything selected, I can scroll through all of them right here. They have a lot of instruments. So according to their website, they have 99 players, 55 orchestral instruments, 418 techniques, and techniques means articulations like legato, sustain, or long notes, staccato, all those. I think I said staccato already. And 33 legatos for melodic instruments and 20 signals or mic positions. And this library works on Windows and Mac OS. So again, you can go through the different presets, and when you click on them, they're going to load all the sounds, or you can create your own presets. This is good because, for example, violins one, which I'm going to load right now. Actually, that's already loaded. Comes with all the articulations loaded. And let me take you through these. This is legato. So this is a beautiful violin one section that sounds lush. I think what I love about it is that the transitions between dynamics are seamless. I have other libraries that are a little bit older, but you can hear the actual difference in the dynamic layers when you're sliding the mod wheel up. On this one, you cannot hear it. It's seamless, and that's exactly what you want. Now, this legato is, when I play it slowly, you get a portamento, which means that's a slow slide. But when you play a little quicker, you just get that quick slide. So the notes flow smoothly between one another. All right, then we have our long notes. Long notes take up less RAM because you don't have those transition or the legato samples in there. And it also lets you play them polyphonically. And then they have long consordino, which means that it has a mute on it. So it gives it a thinner sound. It's airier. I'm going to add a little bit of reverb on here so that it sounds like it's in a room. Speaking of room, the special thing about this library is that it was recorded at the Maida Vale Studios in London by the BBC Symphony Orchestra, which is why it's called the BBC Symphony Orchestra. What's special about this? Well, BBC Symphony is famous for many television shows, movies, documentaries. I would characterize their sound as very dark and lush and serious. And that's the impression that I got when I started playing this, especially the strings. It has this very serious tone to it, almost somber. Even when you're playing happy stuff. But it's very beautiful. One of my favorite articulations or techniques is flautando, which is when you barely play the note, it gives this ethereal feel. So these are good for pads or long sustained notes. By the way, on certain articulations, you can change the release by going into the effects menu. And they have different parameters here, tightness, variation, vibrato, that are only available for certain techniques. I'll get to those in a minute. Let's listen to spiccato. Now this one you can actually adjust the tightness of it. And of course, all of these are MIDI assignable, so if you have a MIDI controller with knobs or faders, you can adjust the amount as you're playing or afterward in your MIDI editor. Thanks for joining. All right, let's listen to some more staccato. Pizzicato. Col Legno, and it's using the stick, the back of the bow to create the sound. Tremolo. And now some of these articulations come standard in many orchestral libraries. Like you would expect to have tremolo in there. Now trill, usually that's reserved for extensions or library extensions. In this case, it comes with the BBC Symphony. The minor second trill. Sul tasto, that means on the bridge. Harmonics. Long harmonics, I should say. Short. These are less common techniques. Bartok pizzicato. You have a snappy sound. Long marcato. Tremolo sul ponte. So this is a tremolo near the bridge. So it has a harsher sound. Tremolo con sordino, that's tremolo with the mute on. Long sul ponte. And spiccato con sordino. All right, I'm not going to go through all of the strings. I'm going to go by instrument family. But I do want to talk about the way that it's set up. So we have a leader in each section, violin 1 leader. That means it's going to be the soloist. Now, I'm not a big fan of the solo instruments on here. I think that the ensembles or the sections sound a lot better, especially with legato. You're going to hear a huge difference. So that's good right there. So it's whenever you hear these transitions between neighboring tones. Some of them sound good, others don't sound as good. I do like the fact that in legato, whenever you play short notes, you get a different sound. There's a different attack. So it's more responsive like that. Let's listen to some of the other techniques. Oh, that is gorgeous. So I know that you can control the amount of vibrato in some of these sounds. Of course, spiccato or staccato would not have vibrato because they're too short. But long notes like the long flautando or legato would have vibrato available. And you can actually go in on this this circle right here. If you click it, you can actually select vibrato and adjust the amount. And I'm not sure what, there you go. So you can hear, I'm going to turn it all the way down. You know, the interesting thing is that I still hear vibrato right here. Let's try on the long notes. It should not be there. There you go. That one does not have vibrato. Now, of course, the recording quality of these are just top notch. It's not harsh on the ear. It's a very lush, crisp, clear sound. I love it. All right, just a few more. By the way, these articulations are assigned to a key switch right now, but you can always change that afterward when you customize it for your own setup. Just go here on the right and you can select key switch, CC range, velocity range. So you can actually layer the techniques. I keep saying articulations because I'm used to that word, but they call it techniques. You can layer the techniques. So if you wanted spiccato on the higher velocities, you can set that on velocity range. If you wanted like the pizzicato on the lower ones, you can do that. Something in the middle, you can do that as well. You could also separate it by MIDI channel. So there's a lot of customization options here. There's a lot of different round robin settings so that you don't get, so you can access different samples of the same note for added realism. They also have different mic positions, or as they call it, I'm trying to find the term that they use here. I always use the term mic position, but they don't use that. "20 signals is what they use. So these are all the signals right here, and they have a brief description of what they are. Mix 1, mix 2, close, tree, out, ambience. I won't go through every single one. You can turn these on, and when you turn them on, you're basically loading more samples of the same instrument, but they're from a different mic position, because when these were recorded, they were recorded using many mics in different positions, so you can get a different sound characteristic and a different room characteristic. So you can blend these together, or you can just use one of whatever one you want. You can also change the stereo width of the close and spot mics, as well as the panning. So that's a great option. Now, because of this, I recommend having, and they recommend having, over 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, my laptop is a couple of years old and it only has 16 gigs of RAM, which is more than enough for the type of music I usually make, which involves regular band instruments or modern band instruments. But orchestral instruments, you'd need something with more than 16 gigs, ideally above 32 gigs of RAM, because this is going to eat up your RAM very quickly. And one of my complaints that I have about this software is that it doesn't have the purge samples feature, which Kontakt in the Kontakt player does have. Now, purge samples, what it does is that, let's say you record your violin line, or you record all your parts and you edit it and it's done. Now you want to save on RAM, so you click on the purge button, and it takes all the unused samples and it just eliminates them from your RAM. So you'd go from something like 744 megabytes to something like 30 megabytes, something very low. So it saves you a lot of RAM. They don't have this feature. I checked on the forums. I checked in the manual. I did not see this feature on here. And I hope I'm wrong. But if not, hopefully it's something that they will add in a future update. But that is crucial to workflow and RAM memory management. Let's listen to some other sounds. Oh, before I do that, I forgot to mention that another way of reducing your RAM usage is by going into this technique edit menu. You have a list of all the techniques available to that specific instrument, and you can simply delete them, and you will see the memory save. I'm going to save this. You'll see the memory be reduced significantly depending on the technique. All right, let's listen to some other sounds. This will be the last of the string samples. Cello. We'll let that load. So even with an SSD, this is a huge file, 834 megabytes. That's gorgeous. Now, of course, this is not realistic. The way that I'm playing, there's a certain amount of cellists playing at the same time. So every time I add a note, it's simply multiplying by that many notes that are playing, or that many cellists that are playing. It still sounds pretty though. Flautando, this is again my favorite technique. Let's add some reverb. Very inspirational stuff here. All right, let's listen to some other instruments. Here we have horn. So the horn is going to be a solo horn, and then the off 4 is going to be a section of 4. So I'm going to listen to that. I prefer the sound of the section. So let me know what you think of these sounds. By the way, I forgot to mention the cost of this library. This library is $999. Is that a lot of money? Yes, it is a lot of money. But is it a lot of money for what you're getting? Now, that depends on the type of work that you do. For example, one time I spent $1,000. I spent $1,200 on a library. It was like a standard orchestral library that had similar techniques or similar articulations as this one has. I wouldn't say the quality was as detailed as this. It didn't have those smooth transitions, but it was a high initial investment, but I made that back about a month later because of the work that I did. And then later on, I recouped that cost from other projects that I did. So if you're into film scoring, video games, even if you want to add this to your own recording project or your album, whatever, this will be good for you. What I was doing back then was making tracks for musical theater. So there's a musical theater often uses orchestras. So this was a good investment. That was a good investment, I should say. So I can't tell you if paying $1,000 is the right thing for you. Only you know that. All right, let's listen to this. That's gorgeous. Let's listen to the long notes. Now, again, focus on the transition. So on this one, I start hearing this ring, the ring of the forte starting to fade in. And that's not something that I want to hear, but honestly, in every single brass library that I've ever owned, you can hear those transitions in the brass. I think brass instruments are probably the most difficult to sample. It's still pretty smooth, but I can hear it. Now, the good thing about orchestral instruments is that they rely on playing with other instruments many times. They're almost never alone. So if you have this horn line playing at the same time as many other instruments, it's going to be harder to hear those little nuances. Staccatissimo. It's a very short staccato. I'm not going to go through all of these. Long quiver, sforzando. So you have that initial attack and then it drops back and it slowly climbs up. Flutter. Very cool. I love this one, multi-tongue. And I like the fact that you can increase the amount of tonguing from double tonguing to triple tonguing by selecting the variation. So you have that fanfare type of sound. Oh, it has quadruple tonguing. Very cool. And then you have your trills. All right, let's listen to some other stuff. Trumpets are an important one. This is a solo trumpet, so I'm curious to hear how this sounds. I'm not a big fan of the solo trumpet sound. When you're playing the notes slowly like this, it sounds better. But when you're playing it quickly, I wonder if that could be adjusted. Let me see. No, you can't adjust that. So my impression is that this library is not really built for high energy music or compositions. You can play quickly, of course, but a lot of the techniques that I'm hearing don't sound like they have that quick attack that you would need for high energy music, except for maybe the strings with the spiccato. But as far as the brass, I hear this sort of this long release on the notes, or this long attack. It's not very long, but it takes away from the energy. All right, let's listen to another instrument. Oh, another thing I wish this had is the ability to stack or combine instruments. Like if I wanted a flute with a piccolo playing at the same time, with this software, you have to load another instance of it. So you would have to open up another track. You can't, like in the Contact Player, you can open up one instrument and then open up another and have it within the same track. I wish that you could do that with this one, but unfortunately you can't. Let's hear flute. This is a solo flute, and I actually used this in the demo that you heard at the beginning. Now, that sounds beautiful, and it's such a charming flute. It's very pensive. But when you play quick notes, chromatic notes, you start to hear the limitations of the legato. Now, this is where fast legato would come in handy, or trill articulations would come in handy. This is really fun to play, actually. Has a very classical sound to it. Now, whenever I have a woodwind library or I buy one, I always want to make sure that the oboe has a good sound, because an oboe has a very unique timbre to it. It's very nasal and it cuts through the orchestra. But sometimes if it's played poorly, it can have a very harsh, grating sound to it. That's very unpleasant to the ear. I would say the oboe and the English horn, since they're part of the same family. So that was kind of weird. I don't know if you heard that. All of a sudden that D had this very bright sound to it. You can hear it get bright all of a sudden. All right, let's listen to the other notes. By the way, some of the articulations are velocity sensitive, so like staccatissimo or staccato. If you hit them softly, it's gonna play softly. If you hit it harder, it's gonna play louder. Whereas legato is controlled by the mod wheel. All right, I want to hear the English horn. Actually, haven't heard that on here. So cor anglais is the English horn. Oh, I forgot to load it. I think I like the English horn more than the oboe, actually, because it has a lower tone to it, a deeper tone, and it sounds more melancholy. So this is what I'm talking about. The transitions between certain notes don't sound great. That sounds better right there. A little bit. Now, my theory behind this, and I could be wrong, but my theory is that there are certain companies that hire the same musicians to produce all of their sample libraries. So these musicians become pros at playing specifically for creating samples, which is a whole different technique in itself, because you have to play the note exactly the same every single time, and you have to know how to play those transitions or those articulations perfectly. Whereas someone who performs live on stage for a living is not necessarily going to have that skill. They're going to probably be more expressive with their playing. I'm not sure, but that's my guess on this. And this is one of the risks of buying a library like this, is that you're not buying a product made by people who do it all the time. Now, the people who do make libraries all the time is Spitfire, so I trust their ear, but I can hear in some of the samples that there's not that consistency in those transitions. I think those were all the articulations loaded. So the English horn doesn't come with many articulations or techniques. All right, let's move on to the percussion. Now, if you want to hear all of these or more of these, you can go to Spitfire Audio's, the Spitfire Audio channel, and they give you a walkthrough of all of this. So I'm not showing you anything that's not out there on YouTube. I'm just giving you my perspective on this. I'm not trying to sell this to you, is what I'm saying. So we have our percussion section, which comes with all these instruments: untuned percussion, timpani, harp, marimba, celeste, xylophone, glockenspiel, tubular bells, vibraphone, and crotales. I don't know how to pronounce it. I've never asked someone. I've never even seen it in person. So untuned percussion. This is going to have multiple instruments, and it's not really going to take up much space. So we have our anvil, which is pretty cool. Bass drum. We have a roll right here, and then we have second bass drum. I think this would be a good time to show you how it sounds when you add different mic positions or different signals. And we have ambient. So you hear more of that room sound. And then if you want more detail, you can use a close mic. We have a balcony. Let's listen to how the balcony sounds by itself. To all of you just joining, thanks for joining. Oh yeah, Happy New Year, by the way. I forgot to say that. Although at some point in the future, this is not going to be the new year. All right, let's listen to some other sounds. Hear the cymbals. Military drum. Again, these are all standard sounds. Piatti. This is the cymbals that you hold. Snare. Snare 2. Very cool. Tam-tam. Tambourine. Toys. And triangle. Now, what I like about the sound of these is that when you start stacking them, when you start recording the instruments and layering them, you don't have to do much mixing. I think it sounds very natural the way that they have it EQ'd and positioned. I've always loved that about Spitfire's libraries, is that you don't have all these frequencies competing with one another, so the editing that you have to do is minimal. All right, timpani. You have your rolls, which are mod wheel sensitive. I like this because you can do a crescendo. Soft hits. This is very useful. Wow, I have people from all over the world. USA, Argentina, Scotland, Holland, Greece. That's amazing. I'm famous. These are hot rods. So you hear more of a snap. I've actually never heard that before. That sounds really cool. So hit stamped is whenever you hit it and then you immediately put either your hand or a finger on it to dampen the sound. Nice. I'm going to do a few of these percussion instruments since they're all really different from one another. Gorgeous. Damped medium. I'm going to butcher this word, bispigliando, tremolo. I think that's when you use the tips of your fingers or your fingernails or something to get that metallic or glistening sound. And glissando effects. Now I love this. I wish that the harp, the glissando, could be set to a specific key. So if you're in a song and you have a transition to another part, you could have multiple types of glissando in that specific key. Unfortunately, it doesn't have it, but that's okay. You can manually put all the notes in. Fun. Marimba. This is a fun one. For when you're making cooking videos or you're making a documentary about something. I wonder why the marimba evokes that type of thought anyway. Oh, thank you, Facundo. All right, here's a roll. So the marimba doesn't really come with too many techniques. Well, two, but I think that's enough. So celeste, I'll skip that one. Xylophone. Which ones interest me? Tubular bells. Beautiful. And the crotalis. I said crotalis before. Oops. Ooh, they have them bowed. That's really cool. I think I skipped vibraphone. I'm going to play that one. I wonder if they have a vibrato for the crotalis. Please. Please have it. And they do. Very nice. So, to review or to recap, this is a massive library. I think it's targeted toward people who do movie scores, video games, maybe even tracks for karaoke tracks for musical theater, which I used to do. It's an expensive library, but it has many instruments and they sound gorgeous. Again, I recommend that if you're going to buy this, that you have a computer with lots of RAM. It's not going to take up too much CPU, but it is going to take up a lot of memory and storage. So make sure that you have a computer that's capable of handling this. For the most part, I would say 95% of the sounds in here are gorgeous and they're very playable. There are a few legato transitions that don't sound natural to me, and I'm hoping in the future they will create an extension library where they will take care of those, or they will fix that part. I wish they had the purge function where you can get rid of all the unused samples. This would save up so much space. And I wish that you could stack different instruments, like a flute with a piccolo or clarinet with an oboe or something like that. They don't give you that option in here. I do appreciate that you can resize the windows. Now, this is something that is a feature of VST3 instruments, resizable windows. But anyway, friends, thanks for joining me. I appreciate that. Can I export in 2496? You know what? That's one thing that I forgot to check on this, whether the sample rate was 24-bit. I don't think it's 96 kilohertz. I've never heard of a sample library that uses that sampling rate. But 24 bits, I wouldn't be surprised if this was 24-bit. So you would be able to export like that. What else? I'm trying to think of the other things that I would change on this. That's pretty much it. I enjoyed using this. It was very inspiring. I know there's a lot of sample libraries out there. Hopefully this one, or hopefully this review helped inform you, give you enough information to whether you want to buy it or not. So thanks for watching this video. Oh, by the way, I will be at NAMM next week in Anaheim, California. I forgot which booth I'm going to be in. Give me 1 second and I will tell you. By the way, this is not going to be on the final video. So visit me. I will be working for Ample Sound. They hired me to demo the products, which I really appreciate. So I will be at booth 14020. Again, booth 14020. If it's in the same place as last year, I was right next to the Sennheiser Orchestral Tools booth. So please come and say hi if you're in Anaheim, and I'll say hi back to you. All right, friends. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'll be reviewing IK Multimedia's B3X library, which is absolutely stunning. So I'll talk to you later.